Welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. We have made it to our 12th make of Christmas. This one is super fast. You can absolutely do it in like an hour or so on the weekend. So you can absolutely make these to match a quilt that you're gifting or just as a present on its own to some of your family members, or especially kids love these as well. We are making French seam pillowcases. This is going to be a replay of a video that we put out earlier in the year. We do have a tiny little bit of this fabric left, but we also just received brand new Christmas fabric. I don't have it in the studio at the time that I am filming, but it is on its way to us. So we'll put some images up so you guys can see what that looks like. We have brand new arrivals from Robert Kaufman, Art Gallery Fabrics, and Wyndham Fabrics. Super cute, super fun. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. So this is a really fun, fast project. We are typically shipping within 1 business day of your order. So we can get this to you and you can still get it done in time for the holidays if you are feeling the crunch, because I know that I typically start to feel the crunch at about this time. But I also have been known to do binding until about 3 a.m. on Christmas Eve. So if you're there, I've been there too. But this is really fun. It's really cute, really giftable. So for this one, what I used for the pillowcase set is I used 1 yard of fabric and I made coordinated fabric. So I picked 1 yard of my ho ho ho, 1 yard of my cats with my scarves, and I was able to get the body and then a matching flange, and I was just able to mix and match that. And then if you just have a 1/4 yard of your little flange, which is optional, then that is plenty. So you can check out our remnant section or see if you've got some stash at home that'll work for that, or just leave it off. That's totally fine as well. Or if you want them to be a match set, then you're going to want to get 1.5 yards of whatever you want for your body and 1/2 yard of whatever you want for your flange. This is really a fun, fast project, and it is super well made. It's better than what you're going to get in the store because all your seams are going to be encased. There's going to be no visible serging seams because we're doing the French seam, which sounds way more complicated than it actually is. And we do this really cool kind of fabric hot dog tube, so that way there's no raw edges on either side of this as well. It just looks really, really fun. And actually, so one of the reasons why I sometimes leave the flange off is that I feel like I need to iron it when it comes out. And I was just chatting with one of our new team members. What she does is before she makes her tube, she stitches this flange down. She just does a little top stitch along it, so that way she can get the look of it, but it's not going to pop up on you. And I think that's a fabulous idea and a great workaround, so you can get the look of it, but not feel like you have to iron it every time it comes out of the dryer, because who's got time for that? I know I don't. All right, let's watch the replay. I hope you have enjoyed this series. Please like and subscribe. Please get the supplies from us. Make sure you head to our website to get the free pattern for this French seam pillowcase and have at it. Make all the things. Wow your friends and family this holiday season. All right, stay tuned. We've got more videos coming for you between now and the end of the year. And I'm also, next on my to-do list is filming a very big tutorial series that's coming to you in January. We are going to tackle free motion quilting. We are going to do a big series on that so you guys can do your quilts at home on your own home sewing machine. And we are going to show you all the things that you need to know so you can take 4 basic stitches and embellish them to create lots of different looks and get lots of great results on your quilt so you can finish more quilts in 2022. All right, I'm going to leave you with that. Let's watch the replay, and we'll see you in a little bit. So we have free printable instructions that you can download on our website. It's just screenshots from the video, but it will help you if you are a visual person and you need something to look at as well as follow along with on the video. So go get that over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. Just search for pillowcase and you'll be able to find it. And the video tutorial will be on there as well. So what we need, this part here is optional actually. You're going to need, in order to make a coordinated set, you're going to need 2 yards of fabric. So you're going to take 1/4 yard from one fabric, like this one here, and 3/4 yard from a second fabric. And we're going to be able to make this into a coordinated pillow set. And then I'm going to have another one that's opposite later. So we're going to use basically the other part to make a coordinated set. If you want to make a match set, then you're going to need a 1/2 yard of whatever you want for like the sleeve end, and 1.5 yards of whatever you want to be for the body. And then you can do the flanges optional. These are just going to be cut to 2.5 inches. So 1/4 yard is fine. You can't order a 1/4 yard on our website, but you can always grab from your stash or just order a 1/2 yard and have some extra. So what we're going to do here is, again, make that coordinated set. That way I can just get 2 yards, easy peasy. We're good to go there. And it'll be cute because it won't be like matchy matchy, but it will coordinate and it will look adorable. So I'm going to start with this one here as our example. I can set all my yardage pieces to the side because the first thing I need to do is get this flange ready to go. All right, so if you've ever made a quilt, then this process is going to be familiar to you. It's like doing quilt binding. If not, what you're going to do is you're going to put your long side out like this, and you're going to fold it together so that your raw edges are matching along the long side. It's like doing the hot dog fold if we remember back to grade school. And then we are just going to press down. And you just want to make sure that those edges are nice and neat and together, and it's super easy once you get the hang of it. And then when you're gotten as far as you can go in your pressing surface, just scooch it down and repeat until you've done the entire width of fabric. Now, one thing to note when we're getting to the next part, your widths of fabric may not be equal even within the same line. And that's okay, don't worry, we're gonna square everything up later. So don't panic if you get to the next step and things are a little bit different width, it's gonna be fine. All right, so I'm gonna do that to my other one, and then we're gonna start with the roll part of it. This is super fast project. So now we're going to make a fabric roll or tube that we're going to sew this together with. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our fabric that is our 1/4 yard cut that is going to be for our sleeve, and we're going to put it so, and this is great because it's directional so that it is going the right way. So when I look at this, everything is looking the correct way. As you see here, we've got the ho-ho-hos and they're not upside down. So that's what we want. Then we're going to take our next piece, and this is also directional fabric. We got a bunch of cat heads that are going up, so we want to make sure that everything is going in the proper direction here, and that is also looking good so far. Now the flange, which is optional, is what we're going to put on here next. And I like to lay everything out like this because then it's really easy for me to see that I have everything going in the right direction. My cats and my ho-ho-hos are all going the right way. This is really important because you do not want to have something going upside down. That it would be no good. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay out my flange. And remember, this piece is optional. You can totally skip it if you want, but I think it adds a nice little extra pop, and that's kind of fun. You can just show off a little bit more of the fabric collection if you really like it. And in this case, it's going to help tie it together because we're going to have different bodies versus sleeves. All right, so now knowing that we have everything going the right way, our cats are going up, our ho-ho-hos are going up, I'm going to flip this right sides together so that this edge is even with this edge. So I want to make sure that when we sew it together, everything is still going to be going the right way. And I'm being really careful to line these up. We're not pinning yet. We will in just a minute. But what I want to do at this point is take as much care as I can so it'll be a little bit easier to get everything lined up a little bit later. I actually often will do this at my ironing board. So it provides a really nice surface to work with. And of course I just messed all that up. That's okay, we'll fix it. All right, now comes the part where we're going to make the fabric tube. I'm going to grab the edge and I'm going to fold it to just before where all these raw edges are. All right, that's looking good. I got about a 1/2 inch in between here. I can actually give myself a little bit more wiggle room there because we are going to be sewing a 1/4 inch seam here, and you don't want to, if you'd like, say if you sew a 3/8 inch seam by accident, you don't want to be catching this, so you want to give yourself a little bit of space. All right, so we're going to keep rolling this in, maybe 2 more times. That'll be good enough. All right, so now I can see the rest of my tube, so I can flip this together. And now I'm gonna flip everything around because I like to pin like on this side instead of the side. It works better for me. So I'm gonna flip it around now that I've got everything encased in there. And we're going to start pinning all these raw edges together so that everything matches up. This is going to be your most time consuming part because we want to make sure that we are not getting this section that is right side up. That needs to be tucked under because that is going to be the end of your pillowcase. We want the top edge that's facing down. We're going to match those corners up. And then we have our flange that is double folded, and then we have the other end of that sleeve which completes our fabric tube. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a pin in there, and I'm going to work my way down the rest of the tube, lining everything up as I go and making sure that this is well tucked out of the way so that I don't accidentally stitch that in when I'm sewing. And pinned up both pillowcase tubes. This will save you a ton of time if you're able to sort of assembly line sew them, especially if you're doing a bunch for gifts. This is gonna help you out so much. All right, so I'm just going to start with the first one, and I've got my sewing machine set up to sew a 1/4 inch stitch. Now, if you typically watch our quilting tutorials, I'm about to do something that you never see me do, and that's back stitch. So I'm gonna start by stitching 3 forward, then I'm gonna hit the reverse button on my sewing machine, stitch 3 back, and then keep going. The reason why you want to do that is we're going to have to pull this fabric tube out, and we want to make sure that we don't rip those seams open, and that helps secure everything, keeps it from coming apart. Now if you're a garment sewer, you probably already do that to start with. All right, I'm just going to zip through the rest of this seam and then chain piece. If I can get my presser foot in the right spot, having some issues down there with that foot pedal. When you get down to the end, make sure you sew all the way to the edge and then back stitch again to secure those threads when we pull it out. Now I'm just going to chain piece. I'm just grabbing my second tube here. You can do this for as many pillowcases as you are putting together. And I'm just gonna start sewing again. So 3 forward, 3 back, and then just sew like normal. So you get that nice and secured on the ends. So now you're going to take your tube and you're going to grab the body of it, that is, in this case, the cat's. And holding on to the sleeve and pulling on the body, you're just going to pull that out. So that way the body of your pillowcase is going to be revealed, and all the seams that we just sewed are going to be concealed inside of the sleeve, so you don't have to worry about them ever unraveling on you. Now we want to check a couple of things before we go any further. We want to make sure that all our seams were caught up in here. We don't have any raw edges poking out. If you do, you're going to have to start over. It's not fun. You might be able to turn it and just stitch a little bit deeper seam in some instances, but you're probably going to have to rip and start over. The other thing is to make sure that everything is still going the right direction. So we have our cats pointing up, they're going the right way, and our ho-ho-hos are not upside down. Now if something is upside down, you have to decide, am I good with this? Can I live with it? Or either redo it. It's up to you. It would probably depend. If this were upside down, I probably would live with it. If the cats were upside down, I probably would redo it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take the roll out of the other one, then we're gonna press. All right, so we're gonna lay everything out, and what we're gonna do is we're going to press so that this is nice and straight and nice and crisp fold on the end. And you can see on the back, there's no raw edges. It's really awesome technique to do that little tube. To help get that nice crisp edge, I like to mist this with my spray mister. There's just water in here, but it delivers a fine mist instead of droplets that a normal spray bottle will do. So what I do to get that started is I'm just gonna grasp this part here and just kind of pull it out as much as I can. And then I'm going to give it a press with the iron. And then I'm going to keep working that all the way down, because I want to make sure that I have a nice, basically there's no fabric caught up underneath here in any way. I don't want to have any weird pleats or anything. I want it to be nice and straight on both sides and not have any extra lumpy bumpy fabric somewhere. I'm just gonna work my way down the entire pillowcase doing this. Now, depending on how long your fabric was in tubes, you may also want to iron the body. Mine was only in for a couple minutes, so there is definitely a roll there, but it's not awful, so I can wait to press until I'm done at the very end. I'm gonna do the other one, and then we're ready for the next step. All right, now it's time to square these up so that we have a nice rectangular pillowcase when we are all done. I'm gonna start by putting my selvage edges on the side here because I wanna cut those off first. And what I'm trying to do, I'm not pinning yet because we have to cut and they'd be in the way, but I'm trying to line up as best I can so that my selvages are on top of each other and my tops are nice and even here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and line that up, and then I'm gonna take any inch line on the ruler or half-inch line, and I'm gonna line that up with my seam from my sleeve of the pillow so that I'm going straight down, and I'm just going to cut off just a smidge. I'll go as close as I can to the selvage. And now it doesn't matter if both of your pillows are the exact same width, chances are they won't be. What matters is that you're as close to the selvage as you can get, and then you really won't be able to tell when everything's right on. This is not a precision quilting project, which may be really good news to some of you, but it is a whole lot of fun. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a trim. So I've started trimming, I haven't gotten all the way down, but before I move anything, I want to put a few pins in here to keep everything in alignment. So at this point I am making sure that my edges are nice and lined up here because people are going to be able to tell if they're not. And I'm just going to put a pin in right next to where that is. And then I'm just going to throw maybe another pin in right here. You certainly can pin more if that makes you more comfortable, but that will keep this together while I pull this down so I can trim the rest. I'm just going ahead and letting the fold happen where it already was in that fold of the fabric. I didn't pre-wash or anything with this. That's up to you if you want to do it. I really don't pre-wash anything. But what I'm able to do now is line it up with the edge that I've already cut, and then I can just trim the rest of that selvage off. Go ahead and throw a couple more pins in there. All right, now we have to square up that bottom edge as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and give everything a quarter turn, and I'm gonna line up my ruler so that I'm nice and even. I should be even at the top and at the bottom. If you're not super even at the bottom, don't panic. It's not the end of the world. It'll be fine. It's a pillowcase. But I'm gonna scoot it over to as far down as I can go, and then I'm just gonna trim off that little bottom. And again, if your pillowcases aren't exactly the same length when they're done, no biggie. It's no problem at all. All right, I'm just gonna throw a couple pins in on this side as well to help keep everything together. And then I'm gonna do the same for the other one. And this is how, if you're doing a whole bunch of them, just get everything to this step and maybe just lay everything on a table. That way you can sew through all of them at once. Now, some of you may be looking at this and going, Stephanie, you don't have your right sides together. What are you gonna mean you're gonna pin right now? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stitch all the way around the raw edges. So anything that's a fold or the top we can leave. And then we're going to trim it down to a smaller seam, turn it inside out, and do the final stitch from the outside or from the wrong side. And that totally encases a seam. It's called a French seam, and it means that you have 0 raw edges. So it's really great when you're making stuff like this on your home sewing machine. You get a really strong seam that's going to really hold up through a lot of washes and really last throughout the years. I use it whenever I'm doing garments as well on my home sewing machine because I don't have a serger, and so this will just make you have the effects, and it's a little bit higher end finish as well, so that's always a fun thing. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do the same for the other pillowcase, and we're ready to sew. So I've got my sewing machine set up to sew just a regular 1/4 inch stitch here. I'm gonna go ahead and start sewing 3 forward, and then I'm gonna reverse those stitches to reinforce that seam, just like when we were sewing our tube. And then I'm just gonna stitch down. And make sure you pull out your pins as you come to them, and you're just gonna stitch around. I like to start at the sleeve and then work my way down to the bottom, because I feel like at the bottom is a little off or wonky. No one's really gonna notice that. When you get down to the corner like this, I just like to sew right off the edge. Then what I do is I'll lift my sewing machine needle up and I will turn it, and then I will start all the way from the edge and crisscross those seams. I also backstitch at this end, just to get that nice and good. Now this side is a fold, so we don't have to do anything with that. Now obviously we're gonna leave the top open so we can stuff a pillow inside. So you just have to do those two sides. I'm gonna go ahead and take this one off and sew my other pillowcase as well. So now we've got to trim that seam down just a little bit, so that way we're able to encase it when we do the French seam and sew from the wrong side. So right now you should have a 1/4 inch seam here. So I'm going to trim that down to an 1/8 inch seam. And to do that, what I do is I just line out the 1/8 inch mark of my ruler on the seam that I just sewed, so I can just trim it off. If that is hard for you, you just kind of want to aim for the middle between where the seam is and where the edge is. And if you just kind of eyeball the middle of that and make sure you don't get too close to this line that you sewed so that we don't accidentally cut into it, you'll be fine. So I'm going to do that around the side and the bottom that we sewed. All right, so we're done with our mat and our rotary cutter at this point, and we just have to press and sew one more time. So we're getting there, we're almost there. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this so that the wrong side is now facing out. And it's really important that you poke your corners out that you're gonna be sewing on, because we want to make sure that those are nice and flat. And then I kind of run my hand along that seam to go along there as well. Now I'm not going to press this entire thing. I'm going to press the areas that I'm going to be sewing, because eventually we obviously want to turn this right side out and we don't want to have to repress like the seam on this side of the pillow, which is going to be unnecessary and just a pain. All right, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to line that up. So this is our edge that we just sewed. I'm going to go ahead and spritz that again with my spray mister so that I can help get it nice and crisp. Now your fingernails are essential for this. What you want to do is you want to grab that seam and you kind of want to push it forward like that, and then just hit it with the iron. You're just going to work a little bit at a time as you work your way down, maybe like 4 inches or so at a time, so that way you can really press that out, because you do not want to have like pleats in there. And also if you don't get it all the way pressed out, you might have those raw edges poking out. So just use those fingernails, press it out, push it out, and then press it to keep it nice and flat. And really, I cannot recommend the spray mister enough. I think it works a lot better than steam in your iron, and that way you don't have to ever have your iron get super gross and nasty. And it really helps you get really sharp presses for stuff like this, and when you're quilting as well. That way everything turns out really nice in the end. All right, get into that corner. You can see the difference. This is just super flat, and this part's still really kind of floofy. So this is a really important step, not one you want to skip. All right, so now I'm just going to turn it. I'm going to do the same thing and press the bottom. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing with our coordinating pillowcase, and then we're ready to do our final sew. All right, so for this one, I'm gonna change my 1/4 inch stitch back to just the regular center stitch. So I'm gonna sew a 3/8 inch stitch here. It gives me a little bit of extra wiggle room just in case I didn't trim and press exactly perfect. And it's essentially gonna take 5/8 of an inch off of your seam. So if you ever do garments too, this is exactly what you need in order to do garments. All right, so starting with the sleeve end, I'm gonna go ahead and stitch my 3 forward and 3 back, and that way that'll be nice and secure for all the time you use the pillowcase. And I'm just gonna keep stitching all the way down. It gets a little heavy at this point, so you might want to help the other side along. All right, so rather than stitch all the way down, I'm gonna stop when I'm about 3/8 of an inch away from the edge. And I can tell I'm there because if I turn it, then the edge should be in line. It's not quite yet. I need to take another stitch or two. So I'll turn it back, see where we're at. That was perfect. All right, so now I'm going to turn and I'm going to stitch down to the folded edge of the pillow. Then when you get to the end, you're going to want to back stitch again. And then we just have to turn it right side out and give it one more press. I'm going to go ahead and sew my other one before I do that. All right, so we're going to turn everything right side out again, and this is for the final time, and it's really great. I mean, you can see these seams. There are no raw edges at all anywhere on the inside of this pillowcase, so it really is going to last a very long time and actually be better quality than the ones that you'll buy at the store. All right, same as before, make sure you're pushing out all those corners as best you can. Check your seam to make sure you don't have any errant threads hanging out. Occasionally, like I've got one little one here, this type of thing we can just clip. It's not a big deal, but you just want to make sure you don't have big sections of thread coming out, because that means you need to take a little bit thicker seam. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm just going to spray everything down and give it a good press. This time I'm also going to press the body because we're done messing with the fabric and we can get it looking nice and crisp at this point. All right, so here we have it. We have two coordinated pillowcases that are freaking adorable, and they are so easy to do. I got both of them done in just under an hour and a half, and that's with filming this tutorial, so that always adds some time. So they're really cute, really quick projects to make great gifts. You can get a set of them together for about 25 bucks, which makes them really easy if you're doing a bunch of homemade gifts, and budget friendly as well. Again, just to go over, you can get free printable instructions for how to do this over on our website, shop.quiltaddictsamus.com. It will have the fabric requirements on it, but just so that you know when you are doing this. If you want to make a coordinated set like this one, where the body and the sleeve are flip-flopped like this, you need 1 yard each of two fabrics. So 1 yard of your ho-ho-ho in this case, and 1 yard of the cat. And then this little flange bit, which is optional, it's just a 2.5 inch strip. So if you get a 1/4 yard, you're going to be good to go with that. If you would like them to be a match set, so that way the body is the same and the sleeve are the same, then you're going to want to get 1.5 yards of the body fabric, 1/2 yard of your sleeve fabric, and still 1/4 yard of your flange, and you'll be set. Super cute, super fun, really durable, because even though they're super fast to make, they're incredibly sturdy because of that French seam, and that way you're able to get it so you don't have any raw edges, and this will last for many years to come, and many washings as well, as you gift these, and they can get used year after year. They're great little novelty gifts that you can give people, and they're a thing that they love. It's great to get a couple extra yards of fabric to match your new quilt that you made for your bed, so you have everything all nice and coordinated. It's just, the possibilities with this is endless. They're really fun to do. All right, well, thanks for following along with this video tutorial. We do have fabric at the time that we're releasing this video. If you come by like 6 months or a year later, probably not. But right now we do have this fabric. It is super cute. It's called Santa Paws from Northcott. We'll have a link to it in the video description down below. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy quilting.